He said Lucifer gave him instructions. Then he set the house on fire. I remember the way the air tasted, acrid, metallic, like a battery pressed to my tongue. Smoke clung to everything, even my skin, even my teeth. He stood in the middle of the living room, shirtless, barefoot, grinning. The carpet was already smoldering. The walls were darkening. He said it casually, like he was reading instructions off the back of a cereal box. He told me to start with the couch, and then he struck the second match. If you're still listening, don't come looking for us. Don't call. Don't ask questions. He said names are how it spreads. So just subscribe, so someone remembers how it began, before it comes for you too. I first noticed it on a Tuesday. A sound, like someone whispering into a tin can. I thought it was the pipes. Our house was old, pre-war, maybe older. The kind of place where heat rattles up through the floorboards and every wall feels like it's holding a secret. We had just moved back in, me and my brother Lucas. The house belonged to our grandmother, and after she passed, it sat empty for over a year. Probate took forever. By the time we got the keys, the place had that thick, closed-in smell, like books that hadn't been touched in decades. Lucas was the one who insisted we move in, said it would save money, help us get back on our feet. I was the one who left first. College, a job, another city. He stayed behind. Always felt more attached. That first night, we stayed up late unpacking. We ordered pizza, drank too much, laughed like we used to. It almost felt normal again, until I woke up at 3:33 a.m. Not 3:30. Not 3:35. I checked. The red digits on the microwave blinked 3:33, steady and sharp. There was a scratching sound coming from the hallway. Not like claws, like something wooden being dragged across the floor. I got up, still half drunk, heart thudding louder than the noise itself. I remember thinking, raccoon. Or maybe the floor was shifting. But when I stepped into the hall, the sound stopped. Lucas's door was open just a crack. His light was off, but I could see him sitting on the edge of his bed. Back straight, hands on his knees, perfectly still. I whispered, "Hey, you hear that?" He didn't answer. I stepped closer. His eyes were wide open, staring at the floor like he was waiting for something to crawl out of it. I said his name again, louder this time, and that's when he blinked. One slow blink. Then he said, "You're not supposed to talk at 3:33. His voice sounded wrong, like it echoed, but only inside my head. I laughed, nervous. "Okay, creepy. Go back to sleep, man." But he didn't move, didn't even look at me. I walked away. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe he was dreaming. Maybe I was. But the next morning, when I asked him about it, he just shrugged, said he didn't remember, said he'd been asleep since midnight, said I must have imagined it. He wasn't smiling. I didn't bring it up again, not for a few days. You live with someone long enough, especially someone like Lucas, you learn when to back off. He always had these phases growing up, silent spells, strange fixations, little rituals he wouldn't explain. Mom used to say he was sensitive. Dad said he needed a firm hand. Neither of them ever stuck around long enough to be right. By Friday, we'd both fallen into a sort of routine. I worked remote, stuck in the guest room most of the day. Lucas was between jobs, which meant he mostly wandered the house like a sleepwalker, reading old books in the attic, organizing junk in the basement, opening and closing drawers like he was looking for something he'd buried years ago. I didn't question it at first, not until the scratching started again. It came just before dawn. I was half awake, dreaming of fire, some memory I couldn't place, of a curtain catching light, and someone yelling my name. Then I heard it, louder this time. That same dragging sound, wood scraping wood, like a chair being pulled backward across the floor, but slower, longer, like someone wanted me to hear it. I threw on a hoodie, grabbed the baseball bat I kept under the bed, and opened my door. The hall was pitch black. Our motion sensor bulb, installed just a week ago, didn't come on. I called out, "Lucas?" No answer. I crept toward the living room. The air was thick, still. I could hear the clock ticking in the kitchen, tick, 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 and the deeper I walked, the more I felt like I was trespassing inside my own home. Then I saw it, the hallway closet door, wide open. Now, that might not seem strange, but here's the thing, that closet sticks. It's old, warped at the hinges. You've got to yank it with both hands just to get it open. We almost never used it, but there it was, gaping like a mouth. I stepped closer, peered inside. The space was empty, except for a single, upside-down dining chair, placed carefully in the center of the floor. One of the ones from our kitchen. Its legs were dusty, its seat facing the ground. Almost like it had been deliberately positioned that way. I stared at it for a long time, long enough that my breath started to fog in the air. Then I felt something brush the back of my neck. I turned, swinging the bat before I even looked, but there was nothing there. No wind, no movement, just that open hallway behind me and the feeling that something had been watching me from inside the closet. I closed it, jammed a doorstop under the frame, told myself it was Lucas. Just Lucas messing around. Some stupid prank. At breakfast, I waited for him to bring it up. He didn't. He just poured cereal into his bowl like nothing had happened and asked me if I could help him move the couch later. The couch? I asked. He nodded. Yeah, needs to be closer to the fireplace. We don't use the fireplace, we never have. It's sealed, full of soot and broken bricks. Grandma used to keep plants in front of it, but he was serious. Said he needed to sit near it. Said that's where the voice was loudest. I put my spoon down. What voice? He didn't answer, just stared at the wall behind me like there was something written there only he could read. Then he said, "It's okay if you don't hear it yet. You will." He got up, left his cereal untouched. That night, I started locking my bedroom door. By Sunday, I'd convinced myself it was all in my head. Stress, maybe. Burnout. I hadn't taken time off in over a year. Being back in that house with its peeling wallpaper and soft floors probably triggered something. Some old childhood fear that never fully left. I even Googled it. Auditory hallucinations, sleep paralysis, shared delusions. All of it sounded logical, treatable, explainable. I almost believed it, until I found the mirror. It was tucked behind the boiler in the basement. Not hanging, just leaned against the wall, half covered by an old blanket. I wouldn't have noticed it at all if I hadn't dropped my phone down there and bent to pick it up. It was oval-shaped, maybe antique, framed in black painted iron, cold to the touch. But what stopped me wasn't the mirror itself. It was what I saw inside it. Me, standing there, pale, wide-eyed, normal enough except there was something behind me, a shadow, just barely there. Not quite human, not quite real. Its head tilted sideways like a curious dog. I spun around. Nothing, just the boiler and the smell of rust. When I turned back, the shadow was closer. I stumbled, knocked over a pile of boxes. The crash echoed like thunder in the tight space, and that finally snapped me out of it. I bolted up the stairs, slammed the basement door, and locked it. Lucas was waiting at the top of the stairs. He didn't look startled by the noise. He looked relieved, like he'd been hoping I'd see it too. He didn't ask what I saw. He just said, "You shouldn't be in the basement. Not yet." After the mirror, I started seeing things differently. Not just the house, Lucas too. The way he walked, slower than before. The way he stared, not at things, but through them. He'd started speaking in clipped phrases, almost like he was quoting someone. Not conversations, instructions. Sentences like, "Don't cover the mirrors, they need to see." And he won't speak unless there's fire. I tried asking questions, gently at first. I'd say, "You okay, man?" Or, "You sleeping all right?" He'd shrug or nod, eyes somewhere else. One morning I noticed a dark mark on the underside of his forearm. Looked like ash or charcoal. When I asked, he pulled his sleeve down fast and said, "It's not for you." That was it. Not your business, or I'll tell you later. Just, it's not for you. The next day, I started digging. The attic was filled with junk from our grandmother's life. Old trunks, broken furniture, faded dresses that still held the scent of her lavender soap. Lucas never went up there. Said it smelled wrong. But to me, it smelled like childhood, like memory. I found a locked metal box in the back corner under a tarp. One of those old military ammo cases with a rusted latch. I pried it open with a screwdriver. Inside, a stack of yellowed newspaper clippings, a black leather-bound notebook, and a single matchbook from a diner that burned down before we were even born. The clippings came first. Local papers from the 60s and 70s. The same house, our house, listed under different owners. One article caught my eye. Local father claims possession, family home destroyed by fire. Published June 3, 1974. The photo showed the frame of our house, just the skeleton of it, charred black and soaked from fire hoses. The article detailed a man named Harold L., last name redacted in pen, who allegedly heard commands from a voice he referred to as the one who sees through smoke. According to police, Harold set his living room on fire with his wife and daughter still inside. He was found walking barefoot down the road, singing hymns in reverse, hands covered in soot, mumbling something about eyes in the mirror. The fire didn't kill his family. The smoke did. My stomach turned. Our grandmother never talked about the house's past. She told us it belonged to our great-uncle, then just left it at that. We assumed he sold it and she bought it back. But this wasn't coincidence. I opened the notebook. Every page was the same. Rough handwriting. Ink blurred in places like water damage or tears. But the content was unmistakable. He is fire. He is instruction. The house is his tongue. He speaks best at 3:33. Never before. Never after. If you see yourself behind you, don't move. That's not your face anymore. The entries got messier toward the end. Sentences broken off mid-thought, repeated lines, frantic markings in the margins. A symbol began to appear over and over again. 3 curved lines spiraling inward, like a flame collapsing into itself. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, Lucas was already awake when I came down. He was sitting in front of the cold fireplace, legs crossed, that black mark on his arm darker now, sharper. I could see it clearly. It wasn't ash, it was ink. 3 curved lines, spiral, just like the notebook. He didn't look up when he said, "You opened the box." I froze. What box? He turned to me slowly, smile twitching at the corners. Not playful, not kind, hungry. I told you you'd hear it. Once the memory comes back, he starts again. That's how he works. He waits until you look, until you remember. I tried to laugh it off. This isn't funny, man. You're scaring me. That's when Lucas did something he hadn't done in weeks. He stood up, came close and whispered. He didn't choose me first. He chose you. Then he went back to the fireplace and sat down, cross-legged, head bowed, like he was praying. I took the notebook with me that day, drove to the county records office. I needed confirmation. It took a while, but I found it. Our house, 1421 Fairgrove Lane, was registered under 4 different owners between 1969 and 1980. All 4 listed cause of sale as fire damage or structure instability due to internal arson. The names on the sales records were all blacked out, but one name kept showing up in the signatures, ML, our grandmother's initials, which meant one thing. She didn't buy the house after the fires, she reclaimed it. Whatever this thing was, it had always been in the family. When I got back home, the attic door was open. Lucas was standing at the top of the stairs, holding one of Grandma's photo albums. His eyes were glassy, like he hadn't blinked in hours. He turned a page without looking down. His fingers were trembling. "Did you know she burned her own father alive?" he asked, voice calm. I didn't answer. He held up the photo. It was old, sepia-toned, a man standing in front of a church. The back was labeled in cursive, "To those who see what he shows." And below that, another message, scrawled in what didn't look like ink. "If he speaks to you, do not write it down." Lucas looked at me then, fully, like the fog had cleared from his eyes just long enough to say one thing: "We shouldn't be here." Then he walked back down the stairs, humming a melody I recognized, the same one from the article, the one Harold L. had sung in reverse. I stopped sleeping, not out of fear, not entirely. It was the sense that something was building, like the house was waiting for me to let my guard down. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt like I was being watched, not from outside the windows, from underneath the floor. Lucas had changed completely. He stopped eating with me. I'd wake up to find him already seated in front of the fireplace, legs crossed, hands folded in his lap, staring into the unlit bricks as if something inside was performing for him. He'd stay like that for hours, still, unblinking. Sometimes I caught him whispering, not like talking to himself, like responding. Pauses between his words, waiting for answers. Once I leaned in close enough to catch a phrase. "I won't tell him, I promise." That night, I locked my bedroom door and slid a dresser in front of it, just in case. I don't know if I expected him to try and come in, or something else, something using his shape. I woke up around 2:40 a.m. to the sound of a match striking, then silence, then whispering, right outside my door. The next day I found the hallway mirror shattered. It had been fine the day before, not a scratch. But now the frame was warped and glass was everywhere, cracked down the middle like something had stepped out of it. Lucas stood at the end of the hallway, watching me sweep the shards into a dustpan. "I told you they don't like being seen," he said. I didn't answer. Instead, I confronted him. I laid everything out, the notebook, the article, the symbol. I told him I knew about the fires, about Grandma, about the people who lived here before us. He didn't deny any of it. But the way he smiled, it was wrong. Like he'd been waiting for me to figure it out. Like this was all part of a bigger plan, and I'd finally stepped onto the right square on the board. "I was trying to protect you," he said. "But he said you needed to remember on your own. That's how the pact works." My throat went dry. "Pact?" Lucas nodded, calm. "Our family was chosen, long ago. One speaker per generation, one listener. He burns the mouth of the liar and leaves the believer clean." I stared at him, stunned. "You're not well, Lucas. You need help. You're not. This isn't real." His voice dropped. "Don't call him unreal. That's the first lie, the one that gets your tongue taken." Later that afternoon, I went through Grandma's things again. Found a shoebox buried in her sewing cabinet. Inside were old cassette tapes, unlabeled, unsorted. I borrowed a dusty tape recorder from the library, brought it back, and played the first tape. What I heard chilled me. Heavy breathing, footsteps on hardwood, the sound of furniture being moved. Then her voice, our grandmother, sounding young, scared, breathless. He came through the mirror again. Lucas stood still, like he knew, like he wanted it. I burned the last journal. It didn't matter. He remembers anyway. If you're hearing this, you're too late. The fire isn't the end. It's the invitation. Then a crackling sound like paper tearing or skin. I stopped the tape. My hands were shaking. I called a friend from the city, Mike. He worked in social services. I didn't tell him everything, just enough that my brother was behaving erratically, that I was scared for him. Mike agreed to come up that weekend. I never got the chance to see him. That Friday night, I stepped out to get groceries. I was only gone an hour. When I came back, the guest room door was locked from the inside. That room had no lock. Never did. I knocked. "Lucas?" No response. Then I heard it, scratching again, from inside the room. Then the unmistakable sound of a second voice, raspy, inhuman, low, like wind caught in a throat. It said, "He's almost ready." I kicked the door in. The room was empty. No Lucas, no signs of a struggle, no open window, no tracks in the dust on the sill. But the mirror on the wall, one I never remembered hanging, was fogged from the inside. And written in the condensation, backwards, "Don't bring others, they burn first." The next morning, I got a call from Mike's wife. He never made it. His car was found burned out on the side of Route 9, just 15 minutes from our house. No impact. No sign of collision, just ashes, like it had caught fire from the inside out. They said the engine wasn't even running. Lucas reappeared that night. I woke up to him sitting at the foot of my bed, shirtless, eyes wide. That same symbol inked all over his chest and arms, darker now, sharper. He didn't say anything at first, just stared. Then he whispered, "He's very pleased with you." I tried to scream, tried to move, but my body felt like stone, paralyzed. Lucas leaned close, breath hot against my cheek. "You didn't run. That's good. He doesn't like cowards." Then he walked out, just like that, quiet, calm, as if none of it was strange, as if waking up like that was normal. I stayed in my room until sunrise. When I opened the door, the hallway walls were covered in charcoal drawings, shapes, spirals, doorways. And in the center of it all, a phrase written in something I hoped was ink. "The house listens, the fire speaks, and now so do you." By the time the lights started flickering, I'd already stopped pretending things were normal. Lucas no longer spoke to me like a brother. He spoke like a translator, a vessel. Every sentence carried that tone, the kind priests use when they're reading scripture they don't quite believe but know they have to obey. I left the house for 2 nights, slept in my car at a truck stop 30 miles out. Thought distance would clear my head, thought maybe the house was warping me, warping us. But the dreams followed me. I'd see the house on fire, always from the outside, always silent. Then I'd see someone inside, staring from the upstairs window, motionless. Their face would shift as I looked. First Lucas, then Grandma, then me. I came back because I thought I had to, because part of me still thought I could save him. But I think I came back because it wanted me to. When I stepped inside, I noticed it immediately. The air was heavier, thicker, like walking into a room that hadn't been opened in years. Dust hung in the sunlight like smoke. The walls looked darker, almost scorched. Lucas wasn't home. I called out. Nothing. I checked every room. The couch had been moved again, pushed against the fireplace now, as if to face something inside. The mirror in the hallway was gone, replaced by a black cloth nailed to the wall. I lifted a corner and saw that something had scratched the wall behind it. Not letters, claw marks, deep ones. I went to the basement. The lights buzzed as I stepped down. One of them popped, raining sparks. The others flickered like they were on a dying battery. That's when I saw it. The mirror I found weeks ago, the old iron-framed one from behind the boiler, was now mounted on the far wall, perfectly centered, clean, no dust, like it had been waiting for me. In front of it, arranged like an altar, 3 candles, burned down to stubs, a small pile of ash, and a bundle of hair. I recognized the hair. It was mine. I backed away, slipped on something slick. When I looked down, I saw a dark, sticky smear across the concrete floor. It wasn't oil, it was soot, but fresh, warm to the touch. I turned to leave. That's when the lights cut out. Pitch black, complete. I froze, couldn't breathe. I fumbled for my phone, turned on the flashlight, and saw my reflection in the mirror, still there, still centered, but not moving. I was frozen in place, flashlight shaking in my hand, but the reflection wasn't matching me. It was still, calm. Then it blinked. I didn't. Then it smiled. I dropped the phone. Sprinting up the stairs, I slammed the basement door shut and pushed the fridge in front of it. And for the first time since we moved in, I cried. I tried to leave. I really did. I packed a bag, threw it in the trunk, and started driving. Made it maybe 4 blocks before I saw something in the road. At first, I thought it was an animal, maybe a deer. Then it moved toward me. Slow, unbothered. It was Lucas, but not. He was barefoot, shirtless, his arms and chest covered in ash symbols. His pupils were wide, black from edge to edge. I rolled down the window just enough to yell at him. He didn't answer, just walked up to the car and placed his palm against the hood. When he smiled, I saw black powder between his teeth. He leaned in close to the window and whispered something I didn't hear, then turned around and walked away. I tried to start the car again. The engine was ice cold, dead, even though it had been running less than a minute earlier. When I checked my phone to call for help, the time read 3:33 a.m. Even though the sun was clearly rising, I walked home, because where else was I supposed to go? That night, the sound returned. It wasn't scratching anymore. It was knocking, from inside the walls, slow, rhythmic thuds, like fists pounding from within the plaster. The sound followed me, room to room, like it was crawling along the beams. I shouted for Lucas. No answer. I went room to room, banging on doors, turning lights on. Every bulb flickered. Every mirror in the house had a new crack in it, like something was testing them from the other side. In the bathroom mirror, I saw smoke curling upward behind me. I turned. Nothing there. But when I faced the mirror again, there was a single sooty handprint on the glass, fingers long, too long, pressed against the inside. Lucas came back later that night. I heard him in the kitchen, lighting matches, one by one. Not for warmth, not for light, for someone else. I found him standing in front of the sink, whispering the same phrase over and over again. "It's almost open. It's almost open. It's almost open." He turned to me, eyes blank. "Do you want to see him?" I backed away. "Lucas, please." But he stepped forward, voice calm, too calm. "You can't deny him now. You invited him. When you listened, when you looked, when you found the name in the flame." He held up a burnt scrap of paper. My name was on it, written in charcoal, and below it, ash to ash, mouth to mouth. That night, I slept with the lights on. Every bulb in the house burned out by morning, every single one. And on my bedroom wall, written in soot above my bed, "You listened too long. Now he speaks through you." I stopped reaching out to people after what happened to Mike. I wanted to believe his death was a coincidence, that it wasn't connected, that the thing in the house couldn't reach that far. But deep down, I knew. Ever since I found the journal, ever since I listened, it knew me now. I deleted my social media, turned off my phone. I didn't want anyone else pulled into this. Every time I thought about calling someone, I'd remember the warning in the mirror. They'd burn first. Lucas barely acknowledged me anymore. He didn't speak unless spoken to, and when he did, it was in short phrases that felt rehearsed, like he was reading lines, and always at strange times. He'd appear in doorways when I least expected him, standing still, staring, smiling like something inside him was pleased. I started sleeping during the day. Nights became unbearable. That sound, the knocking, it got worse. Now it came from under my bed, from the closets, from inside the vents, and sometimes it mimicked my voice. I'd hear myself calling out from the other room, asking for help, but it wasn't me, and it never came from where I was. I tried to document it. I set up my phone on video one night, propped it on a dresser, hit record, just to prove I wasn't losing my mind. I lasted about 3 hours before the air turned sour, heavy like burnt plastic. The room felt like it was shrinking. I tried to ignore it, pretended to sleep. Then came the sound of breathing. Not mine, not Lucas's. Deep, wet, just beside the bed. I didn't move. I didn't open my eyes. I just listened. A voice whispered into my ear, "We're almost the same now." I turned on the light. The room was empty. The video file was corrupted, static, glitches. But at the 2-hour mark, for just a frame or two, something crawled into the shot on all fours. No face, just a mouth stretched open across where its eyes should have been. I deleted the file, smashed the phone. I told myself I could leave. Still, that it wasn't too late. That if I packed a bag and walked away, it would stop. I lasted 2 blocks. Every shadow looked wrong. Every car that passed made my heart spike. It wasn't just fear. It was the sense that something was following, just behind my right shoulder. Never seen, never close, but always there. I turned around once and saw Lucas standing at the corner of the street, barefoot, silent, just watching. He didn't follow me. He didn't need to, because by then, I already knew The house wasn't where it lived anymore. It had taken root in me. I tried burning the journal, built a fire in the yard, waited until Lucas was gone. It didn't work. The pages wouldn't catch. They smoked, curled, but never burned. The flame kept dying, no matter how much light or fluid I poured. And then, this part I still don't understand. I swear I heard laughing, from under the soil, from beneath my feet. That night, I woke up with the pages tucked under my pillow. Same entries, same handwriting. But now, they were still being written. Fresh ink, new lines, new instructions. He needs your voice next. Do not resist the fire. It is his breath. Your brother is ready. You are almost ready too. Lucas began preparing the living room like a church. He moved the furniture out, tore up the carpet, lined the hardwood floor with salt in a spiral shape, and in the center, he placed the mirror. The one from the basement, now perfectly clean, framed in what looked like burnt wood. He wouldn't let me touch it. Reflection is prayer, he said. He speaks through reversal, through the lie of shape. Then he handed me a candle. Yours is the second match. I asked what that meant. He smiled. First opens the gate, second lets him in. I tried one last time to reach someone. I called a childhood friend, Eli. Didn't say much, just that I needed help, that something was wrong. He came by the next day. Lucas wouldn't let him in. He stood at the front door, blocking it, eyes glassy, hands behind his back like he was hiding something. Eli yelled my name. I tried to answer, but Lucas turned and shook his head. That tiny, slow, knowing shake. I watched from the upstairs window. Eli turned and walked away. He never texted, never called. I found his name days later in the journal, scrawled into the margin, "The third ear cannot listen." I don't know what that means. I don't want to. I started forgetting things, where I put objects, what day it was. Sometimes I'd blink and find myself standing in rooms I don't remember entering. I'd open my mouth to speak and hear someone else's voice. Once I found a burn mark on my arm, 3 curved lines spiraling inward. I didn't make it, but I also didn't feel pain when I saw it. Only recognition. One morning, I caught my reflection in the hallway mirror. I wasn't moving, but it was. Blinking, breathing. It lifted its hand, touched the glass, then smiled. My face, but not my eyes. I whispered, "What do you want?" And from the reflection, I heard my own voice answer, "You." Empty. Now I avoid mirrors. I talk to no one. The journal writes itself. Lucas speaks less. But the silence is worse. It's pregnant. Waiting. Like the moment just before a match is struck. Something is going to happen. Soon. I can feel it in the walls, in my chest, in my name. And every time the house settles, it doesn't sound like wood or wind. It sounds like breathing. The house has a smell now. It's not mold or dust or even smoke. It's older than any of those, like burnt wax and blood that dried decades ago. It clings to my clothes, to my skin. It's inside me now. And I've stopped fighting it. Not because I want to surrender, but because some part of me already has. Like I was never resisting, just delaying the inevitable. Lucas said something yesterday. He was standing in the backyard, barefoot in the frost, staring at the sky with his arms stretched out. I asked him what he was doing. He smiled and said, "You have to open the mouth for the fire to speak." Then he turned his head, and I swear, for just a second, his face didn't belong to him. It was still his face, but arranged wrong. Like someone had copied it from memory and made just enough mistakes to feel familiar, but hollow. I couldn't look for more than a second. When I blinked, he was back to normal. Or what passes for normal now. That night, I found something behind the walls. I heard the knocking again, steady, rhythmic. It came from the guest room, the one Lucas had locked from the inside weeks ago. I hadn't gone in since, but the door was open now. As if it had been waiting, the room was empty, no furniture, no light. Except for a single lamp in the corner, humming quietly, casting long shadows across the floor. And in the far wall, right behind where the bed used to be, someone had carved a small door, no bigger than a cabinet, a wooden square maybe 2 feet wide. sealed shut with 6 nails. I got pliers from the kitchen. I don't know why. I wasn't thinking, I was acting. Following a pull I didn't recognize but couldn't ignore. I pried the nails loose one by one. The door groaned open. Inside, darkness. A hollow space between the walls. Cobwebs, dust, and a box. Old, wood, bound in twine, sealed with wax. The wax was black and cracked like it had been burned and cooled 100 times. I took it out, carried it to the living room, sat on the floor in front of the cold fireplace. Lucas appeared behind me like a shadow. "You found it," he said. His voice was full of something I hadn't heard in weeks. Pride. I didn't ask what it was, because I already knew. The moment I touched it, the smell in the house thickened, like something had woken up. I untied the twine. The lid came off slow, like the box didn't want to open all the way. Like something was holding it shut from the inside. Inside, a folded piece of parchment, a key, blackened with soot, a bone fragment, human, small, with something etched into the surface, and a name, scratched into the lid from the inside, L. Fairgrove. The name meant nothing to me, until I remembered that our street, our entire neighborhood, was named Fairgrove. I checked the deed to the house. The original owner was listed as Leonard Fairgrove, built in 1893, and below that a note in faded type. No transfer allowed without ceremonial severance. I had no idea what that meant, but Lucas did. He reached into the box, picked up the bone, and held it gently in his hands like it was sacred. He started the line, Lucas said. He was the first to listen, first to speak back. Then he smiled and whispered, "And we are his answer." I locked myself in my room that night. Didn't sleep, didn't blink, because I knew what came next. Every generation, someone in our family had kept this going. Not by choice, maybe not even consciously, but the pattern was too exact. The house was inherited. But the voice, that was passed down. My great-grandmother died in a fire. My uncle went missing in 1986. My mother overdosed with candles still burning around her. None of it was coincidence. It was continuation. The parchment in the box was a page torn from a larger book. The ink looked fresh, like it had been written just for me. It said, "When the voice echoes twice, light the second flame. Do not fear the mimic. It must wear your face before it wears your name. To refuse is to forget. To forget is to become hollow, and the hollow must be burned clean. Ash is the beginning, mouth is the gate, blood is the ink." I didn't know what it meant, but I couldn't stop reading it, over and over again, until the letters began to change. Like they weren't printed but performed, alive, reshaping based on what I understood. And then I heard it, my voice, from downstairs, calling my name. Not Lucas's voice, mine. I opened the door. The hallway was dark, cold, and at the far end, standing perfectly still, was me. Same hoodie, same shoes, same burn mark spiraling on my arm. It lifted its hand and pointed to the fireplace. Then it whispered, "The second flame is yours." Lucas waited by the hearth. He handed me a match. There were 2 candles now. One had already burned low, wax running like blood onto the wood floor. He lit his, then looked at me. I didn't move, not at first. But then, I struck the match, held it above the wick, and for just one moment, before the fire took, I saw something in the mirror. It was no longer my face. It was someone older, someone burnt, someone watching from the other side, grinning with a mouth full of teeth that never ended. And behind them, dozens more, all smiling, all waiting. The match burned down to my fingers. I didn't feel the heat at first, just watched the flame shrink, listening to the faint hiss as wax from the candle began to melt. It dripped onto the floor in slow, deliberate drops. Each one sounded too loud in the quiet living room. Lucas didn't rush me. He never rushed anything. That was the worst part. The patience. Like he knew time was on his side. "You don't have to do it yet," he said softly. He prefers willingness. But fear works too. I blew the match out. The room sighed. I swear it did. Like the house itself had been holding its breath. The candle remained unlit. Lucas's expression didn't change, but something behind his eyes shifted. Something tightening, like a hand closing around a throat. "He'll ask again," Lucas said. "He always does." That night, the house began to offer alternatives. I don't know how else to describe it. Doors opened on their own. Drawers slid out just enough to reveal what was inside. The attic ladder lowered itself with a slow creak, stopping inches above the floor like an invitation. I stayed in my room, sat on the bed, rocked slightly, tried not to look at the mirror. I thought about leaving again, about just walking into the woods behind the house and never coming back. But every time that thought formed, another one followed it. Unwanted, invasive. Where would you go that he hasn't already seen? I covered my ears. It didn't help. The journal changed again. I woke up with it open on my chest, pages fluttering gently as if moved by a breeze that didn't exist. The ink was still wet. New instructions. One must burn so the other may speak. The house remembers all voices, but it can only keep one. Choose the mouth or become the fuel. My hands shook so badly I could barely close the book. I didn't need Lucas to explain it. I understood. This wasn't about the house, or the fire, or even the thing wearing the mirrors. It was about continuation. One of us would remain, one of us would carry it forward, and the other would be erased, consumed, reduced to smoke and silence. I found Lucas in the kitchen later that morning, carefully arranging candles on the table. 3 rows, perfectly spaced, all the same size. He looked up when I entered. "Did he show you?" he asked. I nodded. He smiled, relieved. "Good. That means it's almost done." I asked him if he remembered Mom. The question caught him off guard. He paused, candle in hand. "Of course I do," he said. I asked him if he remembered the night she died. The candles, the smell of smoke. The way she kept saying she heard someone whispering from the hallway. His hands started to shake. "She was sick," he said quickly. "You know that. She was tired." "She was scared," I said. "And you were there." Lucas dropped the candle. It rolled across the floor, unlit. "You weren't supposed to remember that part," he said. I stepped closer. "You were the first one he spoke to, weren't you?" Even back then. Lucas backed away. I was just a kid. So was I. The silence between us stretched until it felt like it might snap. "He chose me," Lucas whispered, "but he didn't want me to be alone." That night, the knocking stopped. The whispering stopped. The house went quiet in a way it hadn't been since we moved in. No breathing in the walls, no scratching, no flickering lights, just stillness. It terrified me more than anything else, because silence meant anticipation. The choice came at 3:33. It always did. I woke up standing in front of the fireplace. I don't remember getting out of bed. I don't remember walking there. Lucas stood beside me, eyes closed, arms at his sides. The mirror was positioned above the hearth now, reflecting both of us. 2 figures standing shoulder to shoulder, both pale, both hollow-eyed, but the reflection didn't show us the same way. In the glass, Lucas was on fire, not burning, glowing, like something alive inside him was pressing outward, stretching his shape thin. And me? I was empty, no glow, no shadow, just a shape waiting to be filled. The voice came from everywhere at once, not loud, not angry, patient. "Choose." I felt it then, something cold and heavy settle in my chest. Not fear, understanding. If Lucas burned, the voice would stay with me. I would become the mouth, the keeper, the next link in the chain. If I burned, there would be silence, for a while. Lucas opened his eyes. "I can do it," he said quickly. "I'm ready. I've been ready." I searched his face, for my brother, for the kid who used to hide under my bed during storms. I saw him, still there, buried deep. But I also saw something else, something eager. "You don't know what it means to stay," I said. Lucas shook his head. "Neither do you." The firewood was already stacked, dry, perfect. 1 match lay on the mantel, Just one. The mirror pulsed faintly like a heartbeat. I picked up the match. My hand hovered. Lucas stepped forward. Then, something I didn't expect, he stopped. "What if it lies?" he asked quietly. The question hit me harder than any threat, because I'd never considered that the voice might be wrong. Not about the fire, about the choice. "What if it needs both of us?" Lucas whispered. "What if there is no ending?" The mirror cracked. A thin line splintered across the glass, cutting both our reflections in half. The house groaned, and from deep inside the walls, something laughed. Not mocking, delighted. I struck the match, and as the flame flared to life, I realized something too late. The impossible choice was never about who burned. It was about whether I would finally stop listening, and I didn't know how to do that anymore. The match burned low in my fingers, but I didn't drop it. The flame swayed, dancing like it was alive, like it was deciding whether to leap, to consume, or wait. Lucas didn't move. His eyes were on the fireplace, but I knew he wasn't seeing it. He was listening to something behind the walls, something breathing. I let the match burn out. The smoke curled into the air like a question left unanswered. Lucas didn't say anything. He just turned and walked away. Calm, slow, as if nothing had happened. As if we hadn't both stood at the edge of something we couldn't explain, couldn't undo. That night, I made a decision. I was going to run. I didn't care where. I didn't care how far. I just knew I had to get out. If there was even a sliver of the real world left outside that house, I had to try. I waited until after midnight. Lucas was in the attic, talking to someone who wasn't there. I heard the floor creaking above me. The same phrase repeated in that whisper-soft tone. The flame listens, the mouth speaks, the rest is ash. I packed a bag. Just the basics. Phone, wallet, keys, no clothes. I wasn't thinking straight. I just needed to move. The house creaked as I moved toward the front door. The air was thick, like walking through a room filled with invisible thread. My breath caught when I reached the lock, because it was already unlocked. I hadn't touched it yet. And worse, I didn't remember closing it. The front door opened easier than I expected. No resistance. The outside air hit me like a jolt. Cold, real, clean. I stepped out onto the porch. The moonlight felt like it came from a different world. I took 3 steps down. Then the world tilted. I stumbled. The yard was wrong. The trees weren't where they used to be. The sidewalk ended abruptly in blackness. Not shadow, absence. I turned to look behind me. The house was still there, but the windows were all black. And in one of them, on the second floor, I saw my own face staring out, expressionless, watching me. I ran, feet pounding into the dirt. No phone signal, no streetlights. Every direction felt like it folded back on itself. I followed the road, or what I thought was the road, until I found the car, still parked exactly where I left it, days ago. But something was different. The tires were melted, not flat, melted. And inside, on the driver's seat, was the journal. Open to a page I hadn't seen before, scrawled in jagged lines. Ash returns to its flame. You don't leave. You spiral. I screamed, threw the book into the trees, but I didn't hear it land. No crunch of leaves, no thud, just nothing. I walked for hours, or maybe minutes. Time didn't exist out there. My watch was frozen at 3:33. I kept checking. The same time, the same glowing red numbers. Eventually I saw lights, distant, moving, headlights, a truck. I ran into the road, waved my arms, shouted until my throat tore. The truck slowed, braked. A man leaned out the window, gray beard, faded cap. You all right? He asked. I nodded, breathless. Tears ran hot down my face. I couldn't even speak. He unlocked the passenger door. Get in. We drove in silence for a while. The hum of the tires was hypnotic, real, grounding. I began to feel the weight lift. The house couldn't reach me here. I was out, finally. Then the man spoke. "What's your name, son?" I turned to him, opened my mouth, but what came out wasn't my voice, not the tone, not the pitch. It was Lucas's, and it said, "Second flame's lit. He's almost through." I screamed, clawed at the door. The man slammed the brakes. I tumbled into the road, coughing, choking. When I looked back, the truck was gone. Not driving away, not turning. Gone, as if it had never been there. The only thing in the road behind me was the journal. Open to a new page, still warm. Escape confirms belief. Belief is invitation. He thanks you. I walked back. I don't know why. It wasn't that I gave up. It's that every direction became the same. No matter where I turned, the house appeared again. Same cracked window, same burnt shingles, same front door, slightly ajar, like a loop closing itself. Like choice was just another trick. Lucas was waiting inside. He didn't smile this time. He looked at me with something like grief. "Did you see him?" he asked. I said nothing. Lucas nodded. "He showed you what it costs." He handed me the match again. My hand trembled. "I tried," I whispered. "I know," he said. "We all do. At least once." That night I lit the second candle. The moment the flame caught, something shifted. The mirror above the fireplace melted. Not shattered, melted. Like glass losing its shape, dripping into itself. And behind it, there was something. A hallway. Long. Endless. Lined with doorways. And in each doorway, someone watching. Eyes wide. Mouths stitched. Faces burned. One of them looked like Mike. Another looked like Mom. Another looked like me. Lucas stepped forward. He placed a third candle in the center of the spiral on the floor. He didn't light it. Just looked at me and said, "One more flame. Then he speaks through you." The third candle stayed unlit. Not because I refused, because the air wouldn't let it burn. I struck the match again and again. The head flared, hissed, died. Every time. Like something was sucking the oxygen out of the room, not violently, not suddenly, but with deliberate restraint. Lucas watched without speaking. The spiral of salt on the floor had darkened, the grains clumping together like damp ash. The house creaked in slow, aching breaths, not settling, stretching. Then the mirror hallway began to move. The glass no longer reflected light. It reflected depth. The hallway behind it lengthened, warped, twisted inward like a throat opening wider. The doorways along its sides multiplied. I couldn't count them. Each one framed a different stillness. Different watchers. They weren't screaming. They weren't reaching out. They were waiting. I stepped closer. The heat was unbearable now. Not like fire, but like standing too close to something massive and alive. Like being under the sun without atmosphere between you and it. That's when I understood the truth. The monster wasn't coming through the mirror. The mirror was the only thing keeping it contained. Lucas finally spoke. "He doesn't have a body," he said. "He borrows outlines. Fire gives him edges." I wanted to ask how he knew that, but I already knew the answer. He hadn't learned it. He'd been told. The hallway pulsed. The doorways began to close one by one, sealing shut with a sound like skin pressing against glass. Each time one closed, the air grew heavier, hotter, harder to breathe. When the last doorway sealed, only one remained. At the end of the hall, it was wider than the rest, taller, framed in blackened wood, still smoking faintly. The door creaked open, and something leaned forward. I couldn't see it all at once. My eyes refused. They slid away from the shape like it hurt to focus on it too long. Like my brain was rejecting the information for its own protection. But I saw pieces. A mouth, far too wide, splitting its shape vertically rather than horizontally. Teeth arranged in uneven rows, some fused together, others broken and regrown. A chest that expanded and collapsed without lungs. Limbs that bent in places limbs shouldn't. And fire. Not flames licking outward, but burning inward. like the fire was trying to escape it, not the other way around. When it moved, the house moved with it. Floorboards bowed, walls cracked, the ceiling groaned like it might peel away. I fell to my knees. The heat pressed tears out of my eyes. Lucas stood, completely calm. The thing didn't speak. Not at first. It listened. Its head, if that's what it was, tilted slightly. The mouth opened wider. The teeth clicked softly, like someone tapping a spoon against glass. Then it exhaled, and when it did, the house filled with voices. Not echoes, not memories. Confessions. Whispers layered over one another, pleading, promising, begging, bargaining. Hundreds of them, thousands, all overlapping, all familiar, all voices that had listened too long. I heard my mother crying. I heard Mike screaming. I heard my own voice, younger, asking for something I couldn't remember. And under all of it, steady and patient, the sound of fire breathing. The thing leaned closer. Its mouth split further, stretching until it wasn't a mouth anymore, but a gap, a tear in shape where sound poured through. And finally, it spoke, not with words, with instructions. They arrived fully formed in my mind, not sentences, not commands, certainty. I understood what it wanted, not my body, not my soul, my voice, to speak it forward, to name the fire, to keep the spiral turning. Lucas turned to me. Tears streamed down his face, but he was smiling. "It hurts less if you don't fight it," he said. "That's the last lie it tells you." The third candle ignited on its own. The flame rose straight up. Perfect. Still. The thing recoiled slightly, not in pain, but in anticipation. The mirror began to crack, not shatter, but fracture inward, like ice breaking under pressure. I felt something loosen inside my chest, something unhooking. A pressure I hadn't known was there suddenly lifted, and with it came a terrifying clarity. If I let it speak through me, the pain would stop. The fear would stop. The house would quiet. I would finally rest. I opened my mouth, and in that moment, just before sound became surrender, I saw something in the mirror hallway. Behind the thing, behind the fire, behind the endless depth, another reflection, smaller, fainter, a child, curled up, knees to chest, hands over ears, listening, waiting for someone to stop the voice. I closed my mouth. The thing screamed, not in rage, in surprise. The house convulsed. Walls split. Flames burst from the fireplace, racing up the chimney and spilling outward. Smoke filled the room instantly, thick and choking. Lucas shouted my name. The mirror shattered, not outward, inward. The hallway collapsed into itself, folding, compressing, screaming without sound. The thing was dragged backward, its shape unraveling, pulled into a depth that had never needed doors. The third candle went out. The fire remained. I don't remember how I got out. I remember heat. I remember smoke. I remember Lucas screaming, not in pain but in terror, as something pulled at him from the floor, from the walls, from inside his own shadow. I remember the house burning, and above it all, the sound of something laughing. Not loudly, not triumphantly, patiently. When I woke up, the house was gone, reduced to blackened beams and ash. Firefighters stood around me, shouting, radios crackling. Someone wrapped a blanket around my shoulders. They asked where my brother was. I didn't answer, because I could still hear him, not screaming, listening. They kept me in the hospital for 3 days. I didn't speak. They said I was in shock, that my body had shut down to preserve what was left of me. One nurse whispered that my pupils wouldn't dilate for hours. Another said I hadn't blinked since they found me on the lawn, sitting cross-legged, staring at the flames like I was watching them tell me a story. They thought I'd gone catatonic. I wish I had, because catatonia would mean I didn't remember. But I remember everything. They never found Lucas. The fire consumed the entire structure, 2 stories, gone in less than 15 minutes. They said it behaved unnaturally, that the flames didn't spread the way they should have. There was no central ignition point, no wiring fault, no gas leak, no cause. The house didn't burn. It was erased, and so was he. They let me go eventually. I signed the forms, answered the psychiatrist's questions well enough to convince them I was safe, but I didn't go far. I stayed in a motel off Highway 40, room 107, curtains drawn, lights off. I didn't sleep, because every time I closed my eyes I heard it, not the voice, the silence that came after. And worse, I missed it. I started to forget things again. At first, small things, what day it was, whether I'd eaten, how long I'd been in the room. Then names, my own, Lucas's, the street we lived on. But I remembered the shape of the spiral, always the spiral, and the sound the match made when it caught flame. One night, the motel TV turned on by itself. The screen was blank, no signal, just a soft, static hum. Then the speakers began to hiss, crackle, whispers threading themselves into the white noise. Not words I could understand, just the cadence of language, instruction without language. I unplugged the TV. It kept humming. I left the motel the next morning. I tried going back to the neighborhood to see if the lot was still taped off, to see if maybe, somehow, Lucas had crawled out, burned but breathing. But there was no tape, no burned structure, no sign there had ever been a house there. Just an empty plot of dry earth, level, clean, too clean. The grass hadn't grown back. The soil didn't smell like smoke. There were no remains, no ash, no scorched wood, just dust. And in the center of the lot, where the living room would have been, the spiral, drawn in the dirt, fresh. I left town that same day. I drove for hours. No destination, just roads. But every highway felt familiar. Every exit had a name I couldn't place but recognized. I pulled into a diner off Route 13, sat at the counter, ordered coffee I never drank. The waitress handed me a napkin. I unfolded it. Drawn in the center, 3 curved lines, and a message. The mouth survives, the voice moves on. I looked up. The waitress was gone. The seat behind the counter was empty, but the coffee had steam rising off it, and I realized something that froze me cold. I had never told anyone about the symbol. Not the police, not the hospital staff, not even the psychiatrist. That night I heard someone knock at my motel door. One knock, then a pause, then a whisper. "You still have the voice. Let it speak." I didn't answer. The door remained closed, but in the mirror beside the TV, I saw myself stand, even though I hadn't moved. The reflection walked slowly to the door and opened it, and behind it, just darkness. I don't leave the room much anymore, not because I'm afraid of what's out there, but because I can feel what's waiting in here. It's in the corners, in the shadows under the bed, in the seams of the walls, in the mirror. Always the mirror. It doesn't speak unless I speak first. That's how it works now. It waits, it echoes. Sometimes, when I'm too tired to resist, I speak. Not real words, just shapes of them, the sound of belief. And every time the spiral draws itself again, on the glass, in the steam on the mirror, on the motel sheets. I tried to stop. I tried silence, but silence is just listening with your mouth closed. And eventually, it always finds the space between. There's something else. Sometimes at night I hear knocking from the other rooms. The walls here are thin. I hear guests arrive, check in, make calls, turn on TVs. Then I hear the knocks. 1. Pause. 2. Whisper. And then the room goes quiet. No more voices, no more sounds. Just the static hum of a motel filled with open mouths and no language left to use. I still see Lucas, not in dreams, in reflections. His face shows up where it shouldn't. Bus windows, silverware, the black of my laptop screen before it boots. He doesn't speak. He just watches, as if waiting for me to accept that this wasn't survival. It was inheritance. They say trauma changes people, that it rewires your brain. I don't disagree. But this wasn't trauma. This was transmission, a shape given to me like fire passed from one match to another. I wasn't spared. I was selected. I don't know how long it's been. Time stopped behaving the way it should after the fire. Days stretch, nights fold in on themselves. I wake up unsure if I've slept or just gone quiet for a while. I stop checking calendars. They lie. What I do know is this: it didn't end with the house. That was the first lie I told myself. The easiest one. That destruction meant conclusion. That fire was punctuation. It wasn't. Fire was translation. I move often now. Cheap motels, borrowed rooms, places where no one asks questions as long as you pay in cash and don't stay too long. But everywhere feels the same. The walls listen. I'll sit in a room I've never been in before, and after a few hours, the air changes. Thickens. Like something is learning the shape of me. Like it's figuring out where to stand. I stopped unpacking. There's no point pretending I'll stay. Mirrors are the worst. I try to avoid them, but the world is full of reflective surfaces. Windows, screens, polished metal, even puddles if the light hits them wrong. Sometimes I catch my reflection doing things I haven't done yet, turning its head before I do, smiling when I'm not. Other times it doesn't appear at all. That scares me more, because when I don't see myself, I know something else is using the space. I hear the voice less now. Not because it's gone, because it doesn't need to speak as loudly anymore. It learned my patterns, my weaknesses. It knows when I'm tired enough to confuse my thoughts with its instructions. That's when it slips in, not with words, with certainty. A feeling that something must be done. Something small, something harmless. Light a candle. Stand closer to the heat. Listen just a little longer. I started writing things down to keep myself anchored. Notes, dates, names, proof that I was still me. But every notebook ends the same way. The last few pages fill themselves. The handwriting changes. The sentences shorten, until there are only shapes left. Spirals. I went to a support group once. Trauma survivors, fire victims. I thought being around others might help, might ground me in something human. There were 8 of us sitting in a circle. One by one, people told their stories. House fires, electrical faults, accidents, gas leaks. Then it was my turn. I opened my mouth, and every single person in the room leaned forward, at the exact same time, like they were listening for something they couldn't quite hear. I didn't say a word. When I left, one of them followed me into the parking lot. A woman, mid-30s, burn scars on her arms. She grabbed my sleeve and whispered, "It talks to you too, doesn't it?" I didn't answer. She nodded anyway. I started noticing patterns after that. Stories in the news, small ones, local. House fire with no clear cause. Man found wandering barefoot, covered in soot, unable to speak. Family disappears after neighbors report smelling smoke, but no fire department is ever called. Different cities, different names, same shape, same silence afterward. I dream of Lucas more often now. Not the way he was at the end, the way he used to be. We're kids again, sitting on the floor, playing with matches we stole from the kitchen, striking them just to watch the flame bloom and die. In the dream, he looks at me and asks, "Did it pick you?" I wake up before I can answer. Here's the part I haven't said out loud yet, the part I keep swallowing back. Sometimes I feel relieved. When a room goes quiet after the knocking, when the whispers stop, when the spiral appears fresh and clean, like something has been completed, that's when I know it fed. And for a little while after that, it leaves me alone. That's how it works. It doesn't need me to burn houses anymore. It needs me to continue. I don't think it was ever Lucifer. That name is too simple, too human. It didn't introduce itself. It doesn't need a name. Names are how things end. This thing doesn't end. It moves. From house to house, from mouth to mouth, from story to story. It listens. And if you listen back long enough, it teaches you how to speak for it. I don't know why you're hearing this. I don't know how far it's traveled already. But I do know this. If you noticed the silence while listening, if something felt wrong when the story stopped breathing, if you felt watched instead of entertained, then it heard you too. That's how it starts. I'm not asking for help. I'm not asking to be believed. I'm just leaving a record. Because if enough people hear this, if enough people listen, then maybe someone will notice the pattern before it reaches their door. Or maybe that's just another lie it told me. I honestly don't know anymore. If you heard knocking after this ended, don't explain it. If you saw something move in the reflection of your screen, don't look again. Just comment, so we know you made it through. And whatever you do, don't say the name out loud.